Well, thank you everyone for attending the second LaPorte Young Professionals event. So we got this group started here because we really wanted a group for young professionals to grow personally and professionally, give an opportunity for people to connect, and then also an opportunity for people to give back to their community as well. So those are the three pillars of this organization. So tonight we are going to get started with a three-part series on building your brand. And this is about building your personal brand as either a business professional or just a person in the community, whether that be serving on boards or maybe even doing like local politics or something like that. How do you build that brand for yourself? We have Nate Loucks here tonight. He is the pastor of State Street Church and the CEO of the Pax Center. And he is going to be talking to us about knowing your why you are engaging in the community, why you are, maybe getting involved in a business, that sort of thing, knowing your passion. So I will just go ahead and just hand it over to Nate now and let you run with it.
All right, thank you, Curtis. And I want to thank Lindsay and Carrie for inviting me to do this. And I'm really excited about the LaPorte Young Professionals Group. I think it's well needed. And I know there are many young professionals and people in their 20s and 30s wanting to not only network with other people, but also just learn how to get more involved, civically and different things. So I think this group has tremendous potential. So I'm very honored to be invited to speak here. And so I was asked to speak on building your personal brand, knowing your why. And I do enjoy talking a lot about meaning and why we do things here. But I want to talk a little bit broader than just why we do things here. And I'll tell you who we are in a second, but also just, I think maybe how it encompasses for any of us to understand why we do anything. Because I think in order to be a good leader, in order to be an effective leader, you have to kind of grasp these deeper questions about meaning in life and why you want to do what you do. If you want to have any sort of fulfillment in your job, if you want to have any sort of just satisfaction for what you do, because I know people that have what are seemingly important jobs and are very dissatisfied. And I know people that you might look at their job as maybe unimportant on the scheme of things, and they find a tremendous amount of meaning and fulfillment in there. And so it's not just about the tasks that we do. I think it's about an idea and a worldview in which we embody in the world around us. So let me kind of introduce you a little bit to why this is such an important topic to me. If any of you have read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, you know this is a fantastic book. If you've not read it, I encourage you, put it on your reading list. You can listen to it if you want, if you're not a reader. Well worth it. Viktor Frankl has long since passed, but he was a survivor of the Holocaust, and he writes about essentially finding meaning in the midst of suffering, but also just how can we as humanity find meaning in life when so much struggle around us exists. And Viktor Frankl has this saying in the book that he says, those who have a why to live, so why are you doing what you do, can bear with almost any how. And so to kind of extend that to Viktor Frankl's life is, for him, how did he survive the Holocaust? How did he continue to put one foot in front of the others? Because he understood at a kind of a cellular level what his why was and why he was doing life and why he was living and the purpose in which he had. And so, and because he understood his why, the rest of life, even the hard times, the comedies and the tragedies seem bearable because he could get through them. And so I encourage you, again, maybe you'll learn something tonight, maybe you don't. I'm maybe batting like 40% on most of my sermons, of somebody learning something. So if you do, great. If you don't, it's okay. You're joining the choir of people that might not. But hopefully you'll learn something about the idea of meaning in your life, because it's not just a religious idea. It is, I think, something that we all have to wrestle with. All right, to give you a little bit about myself, I am a pastor here in LaPorte, Indiana. My background is Wesleyan Anabaptist, which means I worked at a Methodist church for a number of years, and I went to an Anabaptist college, which is just like Mennonites. My wife is Romanian. She's a Romanian Baptist and grew up in Romania in a country full of Eastern Orthodox. And now I pastor an ecumenically inclusive Christian church. So we're just all messed up here. And we planted here at 209 State Street in downtown LaPorte. One of the things that for me was vital is, as we see the church in America kind of either closing or going to the outskirts of a city, outskirts of where people are, to the suburbs, these kind of things. We see then there's these little centers of cities without churches, but more importantly, without hubs of help. And so what we wanted to do is make sure that we moved into a community in LaPorte, one of the poorest neighborhoods here in LaPorte, and to start a church, but also to be good neighbors to our community. And so we started a thing called the Pax Center. Actually, that literally just started at the church by putting a sign out in our yard 10 years ago that said, "We have food." And we started feeding people. And that first month we fed 300 of our neighbors, the next month 400, 500, until we became the largest food provider in LaPorte and the second largest in the county. And we, about 5 years ago, almost 6, received a bar / nightclub to move our Pax Center into. And that's actually not far from Leap's building there on 605 Washington Street. I just discovered they're building a land bridge right by us today. And they did not ask me my opinion there. But I will tell you this: when you know your why, you will give your opinion to them after they announce those things. And so we have our spot there on 605 Washington Street, the Pax Center. Then we also have a couple different little other projects called the Jackson Street Community Garden, which is on the corner of Jackson and Jefferson. And then we are finishing just this year a $1 million project called the Brighton Street Green Space, and it is on the corner of Brighton Street and Pulaski here, and over kind of I don't want to call it Poletown because it's pejorative, so I don't know what else to call it. So forgive me if I'm being pejorative, because I don't mean to be. I am trying to be woke, but I'm just not very good at it yet. But anyway, it's over on Pulaski and Brighton. So we've got that. That's going to be a green space, community gardens, all those kind of things. I'm also a host of a radio show every Monday and Friday here in LaPorte called Sound Off. I get to hopefully teach people how to engage civilly with each other. One of my whys, why do I do what I do, is I want to help people learn the art of good neighboring. And I am a product of people in my life that practiced good neighboring. And so I want to be a part of showing and demonstrating and embodying good neighboring to others. And then finally, like I said, I'm a husband and dad. I've got 3 kids that are at home right now with my wife. By the way, we have a coffee shop here at State Street Community Church, and I'm in there right now. This is not my home. So first thing I want to talk about is, who are you at the center of your being? It's one of the most important and integral questions you can ask yourself, is who are you at the center of your being? Not necessarily like who do you want to be, but like, who are you? So many people I know, I go to lots of different professional events. We have different church events, these kind of things. And the people that I counsel as well are battling this question of who are they at their center? Are they greedy? Are they judgmental? Are they kind? Are they loving? Is it a mix of a bunch of things? Who are they? Some of them know who they want to be. Many people I talk to know who they've been told to be by parents or by a spouse or by friends, or the pressure that was put on them by society. Some of them have ideas of what others have essentially forced onto them and told them that they should be. But so many people I know are struggling with who they really are at their core of their self. And I don't know if we'll find what our why is as people, as humanity, until we figure out who we really are. The struggle that I've learned anyway, because I know very few things, but I do know this, the struggle that I've learned is that the journey of discovering who we are is one that we begin, but not one that we finish. It's one that we start asking these questions, these introspection questions, these meditative questions about who we are, what makes us tick, why do we get upset when somebody says these things, why when somebody, you know, posts that thing on Facebook, do I have to close my computer and then complain to my staff that somebody would actually say that thing? Why is that? Why is it that, you know, when I hear these words from somebody, I immediately get defensive? Why is it that this issue in this community truly bothers me? Those are deep questions, guttural questions, cellular type of questions about who you are on the inside. And it's very hard to ask those questions. One of the kindest things someone has ever said to me was just recently by Carrie Campbell. And Carrie said, she said, Nate, in an email, she said, and I have it in an email, so it's on record legally. She says, you're consistent. And that could be like consistently a jerk, that could be consistently nice, it could be all kinds of things. But I love the word consistent because it is what I'm trying to be. I want to be consistent. To be honest, I'm not sure what building a brand is completely. My niece, my 16-year-old niece, has 1,000 more followers than I do on Instagram, so she's probably better at building like a social media following and brand. But I do know how to hopefully try to be more consistent in a community, how to be leaders that are consistent in what we say and what we do. And I believe that if you want to be someone in the community that hopefully is asked to do things or maybe even is followed to do things, it's going to be because you've learned to be consistent in what you say and what you do. I've learned a thing or two about life and trying to be consistently Nate Loucks, but all I know is how to be me. The first thing I want to talk about is learning to be honest. I have struggled so much in my life trying to be a person who someone else wants me to be. I have an addiction. It is not an alcohol or a food addiction. It is not anything. My addiction is to people's approval. I want everyone's approval. I want people to be happy with me. I want them to think I've done a good job. I don't want empty flattery. Empty flattery means nothing to me. But I do want people to know that I'm there for them and that I care for them and that I am willing to work hard for them. And so then I want the approval. And when I don't get the approval from people, I feel like not only have I failed them, but I've failed in life. And so one of the first things, and this was actually in the context of a therapy session, is I had to get vulnerable with myself and be honest with myself that this is actually an addiction that I have to battle. Because I'm going to give you a little secret here. Not everyone's going to be happy with you. Not everyone will be happy with you because not everyone's happy with themselves. And so sometimes you have to just be honest with the things that you're struggling with who you are on the inside, so that you can be more consistently yourself. I remember this story with, like I told you, I've got 3 kids. My oldest is a daughter. She's in middle school. My son, Finley's in intermediate school. And my youngest son's at Riley Elementary, Harry. And I remember when they were a little younger and we were driving home for the first 10 years of my marriage, or for the first 10 years of having kids, rather, we lived in South Bend. I worked in LaPorte, but we lived in South Bend. And I was driving back to South Bend with my kids, and I hear them fighting in the back. And my middle child, my oldest son, is crying. And I say, what happened? And he says, Harry hit me. And I thought, oh, I mean, if I'm being honest with you, it is within the realm of possibility for my youngest son to be violent. And so I thought, well, that's probably likely. So I said, Harrison, did you hit did you hit your brother? And he said, no, I didn't. And again, he's maybe 3 years old at this time. My other son's about 5, and he said, I didn't do it, Dad. And again, you then stuck with this really weird dilemma between, you have one child saying one thing, the other child saying another, and what do you do as a parent? Who do you believe? Well, I said, well, then who hit your brother? I mean, somebody had to have hit your brother. And he said, Maggie did it. I said, so you're telling me Maggie hit your brother? I said, yes, Maggie hit him. And so I said, okay, Harrison, now if you've ever tried to rationalize with a 3-year-old, it's not always the easiest thing. But I said, okay, I help me see this, son. So you're telling me Maggie hit your brother and made him cry, but I'm telling you, as we're driving home, Maggie isn't even in the car with us right now. I said, Maggie's not here with us, so I don't know. Firstly, I don't know how that could happen. How Maggie could hit your brother when she's not even here to do that. And then secondly, I said, Maggie's really not all that violent. So that, you have hit your brother in the past. I don't ever remember Maggie hitting Finley. It just doesn't seem like something Maggie would do. And I said, thirdly, the thing that really gets me about this and why I think you are lying, son, and why you're not being truthful with me or yourself is that Maggie's a cat. I don't think Maggie hit your brother. So again, the 3-year-old says, no, I'm pretty sure Maggie did it. I think sometimes we get into the cycle of not being truthful with ourselves and believing the lies either that we tell others or the lies that have been told to ourselves about who we are as people, about what makes us tick. I know people that have gone so long in life, 30s, 40 years old, and figured out finally that the things that they're doing in life, the career choices they've made, the passions that they think they have, were really just inherited by them from another generation before them. And they started saying, well, I don't actually want to do this job. I actually don't want to live here. I actually don't want to do these things. I just thought that I had to do it. And I started lying to myself and telling myself that this is what I had to do. I think we have to start being honest with ourselves if we want to figure out our why. Why are we doing things? Well, we got to figure out who we are. For many years as a teenager, I was ashamed of my story and who I was. My parents were teen parents. My mom was 15. They met at the LaPorte County Fair. As romance in LaPorte County goes, they got pregnant. And my oldest brother, Ryan, was the product of a 15-year-old mom and an 18-year-old dad. And they got married young. And they were only married for about 7 years. But in that 7 years, they had 4 kids. And I was really embarrassed because my parents divorced. My mom grew up she raised us as a single mom, very poor. We lived in a trailer park, and I was the third boy, and I had a lot of hand-me-downs, and I didn't like it because, again, by the time like the third one comes around, you're really wearing thin on some of these clothes. I didn't like that, we had free lunch. I didn't have to pay for my lunch. I saw my friends who their parents had jobs, better jobs. I for some reason would just notice, at Rolling Point Elementary, you'd go in on Monday and you'd bring your money and there'd be a table there and you'd sit your money down and they'd take your money and then they'd write, they put a check by the days that you wanted lunch. I didn't have to do that because my lunch was free and they just assumed that I was going to get lunch every day. And I was embarrassed. I remember a friend asking me, why don't you ever have to get in line? Well, it's because we're poor. We actually don't have to pay for lunch. I remember wanting cool shoes and never getting them. And I was embarrassed by who I was. I was embarrassed that my mom smoked cigarettes. I remember that. I was embarrassed of just so many things about my story. And it wasn't until I started figuring out that I'm Nate Loucks. I am who I am. I cannot change the family I was born into. I cannot change the story that I've lived. I cannot change the circumstances that have happened to me. I can only learn from them and then live the best I can in reaction to them. But it starts from being honest with ourselves, saying, this is who I am today. It's not who I have to be. Again, nobody is who they have to be. We can continue to change and grow. It's not who I'm going to be, but it is who I am right now. And that's okay. It's okay to be who you are right now. There's nothing wrong with who you are today. It is who you are. And if you don't want to be the person you are today, you can make choices to not be that person. But if you don't like it, you have to do the introspection to say, okay, who am I and why do I respond in the way that I do? One of the things I tell my guests on the radio show, I get to meet politicians and different things. and I get to have Mayor Tom Dermody on the show once a month, and I get to have, you know, just the state reps and governor candidates, all these kind of fun things. And when I get to host my radio show, one of the things I always tell my guests, especially if they haven't done a lot of radio and things like this, and especially politicians, because in order to be a politician, there's this pressure that you have all the answers, that you know all of the right policies, that you've got every issue and policy, you know, impulse figured out. And I know a decent amount of politicians now, and I don't know a single one of them that has everything figured out. But what I tell them when they're on the show, because they're going to get calls from people, they're going to get asked questions. I might ask them a question. I never tell them what I'm going to ask them. And I say, okay, here's the thing is, you might get to a point where you get a question and you're not going to know. It's just better to say you don't know. You could say, I'm going to find out. You can even say, you know, here's my number, call me and we can talk about it. But it's okay to say you don't know. And you know, most of the politicians still won't do it. Why? Because in order to admit that you don't know something is to show a vulnerability in a world and a culture that doesn't value not knowing something. So I think we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with who we are, what we know, what we don't know, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, where our vulnerabilities lie, where we get tired, where we don't, what pushes us, what doesn't, what motivates us, what doesn't. And we have to kind of do some introspection. And let me call a timeout here and give a big cheer for anybody doing therapy. It's a great way. You don't have to go there just because you're dealing with some kind of trauma. Sometimes you just go to therapy to deal with trying to sort out the intricacies of life, trying to figure out what your life is about. I've met with so many people, sometimes just once, sometimes twice or three times, just because they said life is crazy right now. Can I unload? Yeah, absolutely. Come and we can talk and you can unload life right now. And sometimes you just need to do that. And in doing that, there's clarity. But in doing that, there's also necessary work of introspection to discover who you are. One of the things we talk about, and Kelly Tanger, who's on here, can attest, one of the things we talk about a lot about here at State Street is this idea of confessions and convictions. Because we know as Christians, we know that not everyone is, and we honor anybody's, you know, faith or non-faith journey. But we also know that one of the more, like, you know, I think real criticism, and one of the most appropriate criticisms of Christianity is that it's hypocritical. And there are a lot of people that say one thing and do another thing, that their confessions and their convictions don't align. But that's not just a problem with people of faith. You probably have worked for a boss, or maybe you've had a parent or something that the same problem, you know, arose. Their confessions, the things that they said to be true, and their convictions, the things that they did not align. And when our confessions and our convictions don't align, that's when we become hypocritical. And the question becomes is, why are you saying that things are true and not living like things are true? Or why are you acting a certain way that you're not compelled to believe is true? Leaders that aren't willing to align those two things, the things that you say to be true and the things that you act out and the things that you actually live to be true, won't get followed very far. There's a story that broke recently here in the news about a political leader that went on vacation in Texas, and he's you know, legitimately getting kind of railed right now on social media because Texas is in this crisis, right? And through social media, all these things we're in this together. And this political leader was on his way to Cancun. And so the question becomes, are we in this together then? Because I feel like you're not in here with us in this crisis, right? That's when people start losing faith in leaders. It's when people stop losing faith in parents and friends. When your confessions and your convictions don't align. If I can even, as your family and your spouse, when your confessions and your convictions don't align, then that's when people stop losing faith in you. And if that's where you feel like you're at, again, to go back to the original point, it's why you have to do the introspection and being honest with yourself. Why do they not align? What is it about, what you believe to be true that you don't really believe? Or what is it about what you're acting out isn't really aligning with your beliefs? Why don't they align? And then once you've done that, once you've kind of aligned those two things, the things that you say to be true and the things that you actually practice, then you can explore your giftedness and passions. I like that Carrie and Lindsay kind of built this around this idea of your values and your passions. And then that kind of helps you find your genuine self. Because I do think we have to explore who we are. And once we explore who we are, we can find out what our values are, our aspirational values, these kind of things. But it can also kind of discover what your giftedness is. I'm 6'5" and I am a terrible athlete. I am a wasted 6'5". There's literally no godly reason for me to be 6'5". I can't play basketball. And I tried, I wanted to, I so badly wanted to, but I'm not any good. All the things that I wanted to do growing up, like being a really good athlete, I'm just not. I'm just not gifted with it. I remember telling my kids, actually, they hear this. This is like a dadism that they hear too often. Is, guys, here's the thing, because my kids might not get all A's. They might not, get a student council or whatever, and that's okay. I am hopeful for them and I want them to do their best. But one of the things that I tell them though is here's what I've learned. Very, very rarely, almost never am I the smartest person in a room. I usually go into rooms and I'm the person that asks questions. I'm not the person that teaches, because I don't know a lot of things, and I readily admit my ignorance. Bert Cook was nice enough to invite me onto the elite board. I didn't know about economic development stuff very well. He taught me a lot. So did Mike. I asked a lot of questions because I didn't know a lot of things. I don't know a lot about gardening. I know a lot more now than I did, but I'm still fairly ignorant about gardening, even though we run 2 large gardens. We have people that do that, fortunately. But I tell them I'm very rarely the most intelligent in any room or any group I go to. I'm certainly not the best looking. I said, and guys, fortunately you've got your mom's DNA, but you're still going to go into rooms where you might not be the best looking in a room. You're not going to be the most athletic. Sorry, your mom and I are both not athletes. I said, but the one thing that you can do is the thing that I always tell myself is whenever I go into a room, whenever I enter into a group of people, is I know who I am. And I go in there and I know that out of anybody in here, I can work harder or just as hard as the hardest worker in this room. Because that's who I am. I can work hard. And I said, that's all I want from you, is just to figure out who you are and to do that thing that you can do, that you can add to that group, that you can add value to that group. Because once you do that, you'll find a lot more meaning in your own life. I don't want to be too preachy, because again, I am a preacher, but I want to honor anybody else's faith commitments or anything like that. But I do want to share a story that has given me lots of motivation. The ancestors of the scriptures that wrote the scriptures thousands of years ago. So to kind of give you a history of the Bible, you have the beginning of Genesis, and the first, historians and biblical scholars believe that the first 12 chapters were written after the next chapter. So it was kind of an add-on that Israel added to the beginning of Genesis. And the whole point of the first 12 chapters was to help the community of faith at that point to understand that they have meaning in their life based on their vocation, the things that they do, based on their locations, the places that they are, and based on understanding their identity of who they are as people in humanity, right? And so one of the ways that the story kind of communicates to them, to tell them that they should figure out their meaning, is they build this, if you've ever read Genesis 1 or 2, and again, you can read it even if you're not religious, but if you've ever read Genesis 1 or 2, you've got, the story goes that tohu vabohu is the Hebrew, that it's formless, it's void, it's chaos, and God breathes over to it. Ruach is the Hebrew, and it's tamed. And after the chaos is tamed, then order starts coming in there. Right, so there's night, there's day, there's land, there's water, there's these separations kind of things, and But then once this is kind of formed, what humanity is told to do then is, I think I have it here. The Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden, which literally means fruitful, but put him in the fruitful place to keep it and till it. And that word to till it and keep it is literally abad shamar, which is to serve and to preserve it, to serve it and to preserve it. And so at the beginning, the whole formation of the world, according to the stories of the Hebrew and Christian scriptures, is this formation of a world. And the first thing, one of the first things they're supposed to do is to till and keep the ground. And it's been my experience that once we figure out what we're doing or who we are, the thing that we have to do is then start working the ground, start doing stuff, start figuring out life, start making mistakes, start living your life. My dad is a concrete guy, and my grandfather was a concrete guy. My great grandfather was a concrete guy. I am not a concrete guy, and my dad is also a bodybuilder. If you look, I think Lindsay's sharing the screen. You can see my dad. I'm the first person in that picture. My dad is behind me. I look kind of like the Norwegian woman that's, hasn't seen the sun in 9 months. My dad looks a little more like Hulk. My dad's been a bodybuilder his whole life, and he likes, working out and things like that. And I like pizza. And so when I was in college, my dad said, "Hey, let's go down to West Virginia." And I got some buddies from the gym, and we're gonna go whitewater rafting. I said, "That sounds like a blast." And in this picture, you can't barely see, but in the corner over on one side is my grandfather, and he's wearing a red sweatshirt. And I think you might see his arm in the red sweatshirt. But so my grandfather, my dad's dad, my dad and I went down. We drove to West Virginia to go whitewater rafting. I've never been, and I hadn't been until that point, but I thought this looks like a lot of fun. So we get there, and if you've been whitewater rafting, you know that it is an adrenaline rush. But I'm with all these kind of like muscle heads, and then there's me, at this point, a little bit skinnier than I am now, but 6'5" and kind of a beanpole. And we look around and we're like, okay, we have a group of, I think, 8 people. Who's going to sit in the front? The guide wants to, kind of line us up. And I think, well, I'm not doing it, that's for sure. And my dad volunteers me. He says, well, Nate's only in college, he's expendable. And so my dad says, you can sit in the front. And he said, I'll just sit right by you, behind you. Okay, fine. Literally, men, women, it didn't matter who was there. All of them could beat me up. So I didn't matter. So I was going to do what they said. So I got in the front, and the other youngest guy got in the front of the other side. And we start going down the water. And when you whitewater raft, they do this kind of psychological psyops on you, where you go down the water, and it's very calm and beautiful. And there's birds and eagles soaring, and a flag flying, and John Denver playing. It's just beautiful. And you go down, and all of a sudden you kind of hit some bumpy water, and you're like, oh, that was kind of fun. And then he's like, okay, guys, I want you to know, on these next couple of rapids, I need you to listen to me. If I say lean right, lean right. If I say lean in, lean in. If I say lean back, lean back. But if I say go as fast as you can, I need you to put your paddles in the water and just go, because we do not want to get stuck in a rapid. And as soon as I'm thinking stuck in a rapid, that means I'm going to die, and I don't want to die. So I'm going to listen to this guy whatever I can, and I'm hopefully going to make out alive. Now, my grandfather over at the other side of the little inflatable boat that they're sending us down the river in is now getting upset at my dad for taking him on this trip. Why would you ever take me on this trip, Neil? This isn't fun for me. And he looks over, and it was all seriousness. My grandfather's probably maybe 70 at the point, tells my dad, tell your mom I love her if I don't make it. And so we're going, and my dad, who is this weird kind of mixture of no fear and, maybe not, he's a very smart person, but he just doesn't have that part of his brain that that registers that this is gonna not be good for you. Like, he just doesn't foresee it. And so he's just having the best time. He's living his best life. He sees his son scared. He sees his dad scared. He's loving it. And so we're going down and the water's going through everything. I start getting right with Jesus. The waters, are getting harsher and harsher. The guy's saying, lean right. I lean right, lean left, lean left. And then he says, I just need you guys for this stretch. And I heard when he yelled this, a crack in his voice as if he's scared. Now, to this day, nobody says they heard the crack in the voice. I did. But so he says, I need you guys to go as fast as you can, paddle as fast as you can. And so I needed to hear no more. I just start paddling, shut my eyes, and I go. And I'm paddling as fast as I can, right? Saying the rosary. I'm not even Catholic. I'm doing as much as I can, to get right with God. And then I finally hear the water's going, the boat's just going everywhere. This voice coming out through the mess, through the chaos. And I hear my dad yell, Nate, put your paddle in the water and row. Apparently, I had closed my eyes, and you can see a little bit in this picture. I don't have my paddle in the water. I was just doing this, just trying to survive. I think one of the things that you have to learn as you're building your why, as you're trying to figure out your life and you're trying to make sense of the world around you, is sometimes you just have to put your paddle in the water and row. And you make mistakes. You learn from your mistakes. You own up to your mistakes. Consistency does not mean you never make mistakes. It just means that you allow the mistakes to inform your next move. So I want to encourage you, as you figure out your why, I want to kind of summarize a little bit of this, is to be honest with yourself. Be honest with who you are. Do some introspection. Take some time. Go somewhere. Maybe in your car, turn off the radio for a second. Ask who you are. What motivates you? What gets you upset? Maybe you need to ask somebody else. Maybe your spouse. Maybe your best friends. How would they describe you? Who you really are? And then think about, after you do that, are the things that you say are true? Are the things that you value to be true? Do they align with your actions? If not, figure out how to get that misalignment back into action. Because you won't really know your why if you're doing things that don't align with the things that you say to be true. So you have to figure out, is what you say to be true not really compelling to you? Or are you doing things for some reason that you shouldn't be doing for just the sake of doing them? Thirdly, discover how you're wired and where your passions align. And that's, again, that is a pursuit you begin, but you never really arrive. You just start discovering what you enjoy. It's okay to admit you enjoy knitting. It's fine. It's okay to admit you enjoy people. My wife and I we're wired very differently. This pandemic is making her live her best life. Like, being home with her family is the best thing. I am going crazy. I miss people, but that's her, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. That's just how she's wired. Her passions are different than mine, and we align where we need to align, and we give each other freedom and peace and our blessing to not align in other ways, and that's okay. And then also, fourthly, once you figured out your passions and once you figured out kind of what makes you tick, once you've done that introspection, and again, I can't figure that out for you, that's something you have to do. Put your paddle in the water and row. Go. Just do something. Try it. Volunteer to be on a committee. Contact an organization and ask them if they need a board member. Start attending the Kiwanis Club, or join a church, or a bowling league, or just start doing things. Start putting because if you don't, eventually your life will pass you by, and you'll only look at the past life as lost potential. I would much rather say I tried and I failed than I didn't try at all. And then fifth thing, after you do this, the end of it, I've counseled people even just this year through COVID, things that have lost their life, that have come to the end of their journey. All of them would say that the things that mattered most were the things that aligned most with who they were, their families, the jobs that they loved to do, their friends. When they reflect back on life, those are the things for them that was the best parts of life. And so you remember as you build your life, as you kind of figure out your own why, that sometimes our why aligns more with the things that you don't think of, the things that you already have possession of or that you have ability to connect with, than the things that you don't have or can't attain quite yet. So that's all I have. I want to thank again. I want to thank Lindsay. I want to thank Carrie. If you have any questions or anything, or if you have any comments, or if you want to tell me where I'm wrong, it's fine too. That's a practice I'm used to as well. I have 3 kids, so I want to thank you so much though for being here.
Well, thank you, Nate. I guess right now what I'd like to do is just kind of open it up for questions. If you guys can just comment in the comment section your questions. I would like to read them off and give them to Nate. Just kind of some takeaways that I had that you kind of things that I've been thinking about and things that I've been saying, but you kind of put it in better words than I have. Is that one of the things about being honest? I really think that especially working in small towns like we do, I think that it really pays to put in good, honest work. Because I believe, well, number one, I really do think that people in general are great at being able to tell if you're being genuine or not. I do think people in general are pretty good at that. And if you're going out there trying to cut corners and just trying to look out for you, people are going to take notice of that pretty quickly. And I think you might be able to garner early success doing that. But I do think you're going to run out of resources and you're going to find yourself, at the end of that rope by yourself if you continue doing that kind of stuff.
I think, Curtis, to your point there, I think people also, you're not fooling anybody, and you think you're fooling people, but you're not. They not only are you maybe not happy with, trying to live away or trying to project this idea of who you think you should be to other people. As you said, I think in my experience, most time people do figure it out, and sometimes they're just kind enough not to tell you. But I think it's far better just to be an imperfect self than it is to be a fake person that tries to be perfect.
And not to mention, I mean, how great of a community can we build if we all, dedicate ourselves to that we're going to do good, hard, honest work for each other. I mean, that's how you build a good community.
Just do something, right? And two, I mean, that's the thing is, just do something. My family owned a concrete company, and there was this joke that always, whenever my dad would show up to the job site, the joke would be, you better have like a tool in your hand because you need to be doing something, right? And to a certain extent, I think that's for all of us. Just do something, participate in life somehow, participate in building a better community somehow. And that doesn't have to be in the same way, but I mean, just, shovel your neighbor's driveway, do something. And I think there's just so much fulfillment in life by just participating in things that are bigger than ourselves.
One question I did want to ask is going back to the very beginning. You said, who are you at the center of your being? Maybe for some people, they have this dialed in. Maybe they think they do, and they're not sure. What do you think some things are? What are some things that people could do to kind of dial that in or figure that out?
Well, a couple things that have helped me. And again, I think, as a person of faith, prayer is a big deal for me, but meditation is a big deal. I think having people in your life that you're willing to share. I've got a friend who talks about the last like 5% of your life. You've got people that you're willing to share 95% of it, but there's that last 5% that if you feel like people knew, or most people know, they wouldn't either like you or wouldn't trust you, these kind of things, because they're the things you're struggling with, right? Finding a person that you can trust with those things and being willing to articulate those things to people is a big deal, and where your vulnerabilities lie, because the only way that I've learned to deal with the junk of our life and trying to process and is to actually learn to articulate it. So whether it's in therapy, or whether it's to a trusted friend, or whether it's to a spouse that is willing to do that, figure out ways to articulate that, and how you process things. And again, maybe for you, you're a writer, and articulation looks like writing. That's fine too. But figuring out a way to actually put a name to the thing that you're dealing with as you're processing and peeling away the layers of who you are as a person. And one of the, again, I cannot recommend enough silence. Our life is so loud anymore. As soon as I get in my car, I turn on the radio or a podcast or something like that, and I don't take a lot of time to reflect or to think or to process. And sometimes just on a once a week on your way home, don't turn on the radio. Just like think and be, and be willing to not take in any more stuff. So.
I did that with a colleague, and they thought I was a psychopath as we were going to a meeting. So,
yeah, I mean that's the thing. It'd probably be wise to not do it with other people, Curtis.
Right?
I mean,
No, I was making a joke. All right, so I don't see anyone else with any other questions. I guess I think I can probably speak for most people here that that was very therapeutic. Without doing our own therapy, that just listening to you talk about that was very therapeutic for me. So thank you very much for that. I think my last takeaway that I want to say is I really liked what you said at the end there. The serve it and preserve it. I feel like that's got a wonderful ring to it. And I think that's just exactly the kind of message that we need to be sending out into our communities.
And like I said, just do something. I mean, run for an office. It's okay. And if you lose, you lost. It's okay. Like, it is okay to try and fail. And I have tried and failed different ideas, and we've succeeded on some, but we failed on some, and it's okay. But if you don't try, what's going to happen is you're probably only going to perform in ways or live in ways that you think you're only going to succeed on. And then you're going to become a person that only kind of tries to do the things that you think other people will approve of. And it'll just be suffocating. And that's not your genuine self. And so it's okay to be who you are and sometimes fail. I do it all the time. It's all right.
Well, thank you, Nate, once again for that. And thank you also to Bert and Michael at LEAP over there for giving us this opportunity to, create this group and get speakers like this on here. I think this is going to be great. Please, if you're tuning in for the first time, please tell your friends, family, if they want to jump in and get in on this group, we'd love to have more of you around. Next meeting, March 18th, we'll be on Zoom again. It'll be the next installment of building your brand. And what is the title of it, Lindsay? Do you remember? I don't know if she can unmute herself. Maybe she can type it there in the comment section. But anyway, so yeah, if you want to tune in on the 18th there, we'll get a Zoom and we'll continue this. Oh, Robin Clark asked, this is a present, is this a recording somewhere we can watch this again? Is that going to be available somewhere?
Yes, I did put in the comments that if you want a copy of this recording, I will send it out. Okay. Since it's a big file, it will be a Google Drive link, but just email me. I have my email in the chat. So just let me know if you do want a copy and I can send it to you.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for showing up tonight. I will see you in a month.
Hey, Curtis, real quick. For this group, actually, I was presented with an opportunity from Deborah Leonard from Grand Heritage Federal Credit Union in LaPorte. She is looking for a board member or possibly a couple board members, and I asked if I could present it to the young professional group. So if anybody is out there interested in serving, please email me. Or email Lindsay. You probably have her contact information as well, but you can email me at miker@laportepartnership.com. So it's an opportunity for anybody that would like to get involved in an organization in LaPorte. So,
And to your point, Mike, I'm the president of Family Advocates in town. I know that almost every board I talk to is looking for good young professional people to join their board. So don't be afraid to also reach out to people and ask them, you know, if you see somebody you know on a board, or just send an email and say, I'm looking to be on a board. I value your mission and stuff like that, because a lot of organizations are looking for different board members. So.
All right. Anything else?
No.
I think we're good. All right, guys. Have a good night. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Curtis, great job.
Yeah. Thanks.
Who's Carrie was, or if Lindsay, Carrie, I assume by Nate's comments, you guys came up with inviting Nate as our speaker.
Yep.
That was a good selection. Now Nate's terrific in
Yeah.
that regard. Who what did you put, Lindsay? I saw you put it in the chat, but I didn't read it. What's the next installment and who's the speaker?
Who are your people? And I don't think we've confirmed it yet, but
Try to get Chris Malman from
Yeah.
goodnews.life.
I
Yeah,
don't know what
Chris.
his- yeah. He's got
Chris
so
would be great.
many titles, yeah.
Are you having trouble getting him? Because I can reach out to him. He's a pretty close friend.
Can
I'm
you
sure.
do that, Bert? Because I know him, he knows who I am, but I don't nurture a relationship with him.
Yep, I'll reach out to him privately and then I'll loop you guys in via email. We'll get it set up.
And then the last one we want to do is what is your
What
legacy?
is your legacy?
We wanted Maggie Sparks. I
Yeah,
can
Meg.
ask her, but I think she'll tie in some of that True North that she speaks on, as far as there's a True North, a book, which is really great for business professionals and kind of talks about all this building your brand stuff. So
Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds great. I think that would be a great grouping of people. So, okay, great job, guys. You guys have a great night. And
in person.
Oh, Dakota, we got your email. We'll send that to you.
How do I